Well, good evening, everybody. This is the March meeting of the Penn Branch Citizen Civic Association. I'm calling the meeting to order now. We, as I said, have a pretty full agenda to cover tonight. We've had a couple of changes. For all of those who did not get my email probably a couple hours ago now, we had a cancellation by our guest speaker, Mr. Thomas Talamente from the mayor's office. He's a deputy chief of staff for the mayor. He is on Mayor Bowser's senior task force for the coronavirus, and that whole team was called to task this evening to help with press conferences and some other things that are going on right now across the city. So we will have to schedule Mr. Talamanti back at another time. He was on the agenda to share with us about the mayor's priority for the FY21 budget. We are going to just push forward. We know that there is an opportunity for the public hearings coming up in April for us all to go out and share with the mayor and the city about what we feel our priorities are. So I would highly encourage everybody to put those dates on your calendar. And in regards to the coronavirus, I was very tempted to call off the meeting tonight in favor of a conference call. Oh, please come in. We're just getting started. There's plenty of seats up front. In the interest of public health and safety of everyone, I was just at the brink of canceling the meeting tonight and sending out a link for a conference call. However, we've got so much business to handle, and we want to encourage everybody to take precaution, exercise those things that the health department and the mayor and everybody is encouraging everybody to do, and that is to not shake hands, do your elbow bumps, your fist bumps, your knee bumps, your hip bumps, or whatever you can to, there you go, to avoid contact. We do have some hand sanitizer for those who would care to use some. Hand sanitizer, and of course, if there's anyone here for the first time this evening, the restrooms are out this door to the left and straight down the hall, if you care to just wash your hands. But please, if you're coughing or if you're feeling sick, we ask you to please excuse yourself and go home, or take whatever precaution you have to. And of course, if you are sick, we encourage you to stay home and take care of yourself. But for those who did come out tonight, we appreciate you. We've got, as I said, a lot to cover in terms of the revitalization of Pennsylvania Avenue East survey. We're getting our projectors set up now so we can run through some of those beautiful charts and results that we got. Councilmember Gray is scheduled to be with us tonight as well. His office confirmed late this afternoon, so we're looking forward to him to show up at any moment. We'd like for him to be here as we're going through the survey results. And we may just switch the agenda around to give him an opportunity to see what some of those results are if he's not here in a few minutes. And we also, does everybody have a copy of the agenda? No. Oh, they're at the front of the room, so please grab a copy if you don't have one already. Kyle brought those in for us. Thank you, Kyle. And towards the latter half of the meeting, we want to cover and provide you with an update on the bylaws. I must say, and got to give credit and kudos to our bylaws subcommittee. I see Dr. Hampton here, Ms. Crockett's here, Kyle has been the chairperson for that committee. Did I miss anybody? Nobody else is here? Okay. So those are the individuals that's been diligently working on our bylaws and will give us an update and their recommendations as far as that's concerned. And lastly, I'll come back on the agenda and talk about the election cycle and recommendations that we have for the general body going forward with that. So are there any questions before we jump into things? No? Well, we are going to switch the agenda around a little bit because I need to set up the projector. So at this moment in time, can I ask Kyle to come up and review the minutes from the last meeting? And we can get those out of the way, and then we'll ask Officer Marble to come up and give us a crime report.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So at our February general body meeting, we had our annual Black History Month celebration. We had 2 guest speakers that presented. Our first guest speaker was Miss Ashley Emerson, the Executive Director of the Mayor's Office on African American Affairs. She represented the mayor at our event and also passed on some updates, including about Census 2020, and that she's leading our awards subcommittee. She also highlighted that Porch Fest DC was again going to be supported by the mayor's office this year and would be in Penn branch this year. She passed out the mayor's FY20 pocket guide to the budget and also highlighted the mayor's upcoming budget engagements, many of which we highlight in our newsletters and email. Our second guest speaker was the Reverend Willie F. Wilson, who came and gave us a presentation in honor of the month's celebration. Later in the meeting, we went on to the treasurer's report. The balance from December was $3,361.26. After withdrawals for condolence cards and membership cards, the January closing balance was $3,051.18. The treasurer noted that we are continuing our effort to bring in new members for 2020, and that members could pick up their cards from her that evening. Also, I think that the rest of the cards should have been disseminated. If you haven't got them yet, please come up to speak with one of the other officers after the meeting. And that was it. We closed after that with announcements from the president, and we adjourned. Any questions on last month's meeting? All right, if not, Officer Marable, you'd like to come up and give a report? Thanks very much.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
For Patrol Service Area 605, I have this stats for the last 30 days. We had 0 homicides, we had 0 sex abuse cases, we had 1 robbery excluding gun, we had 1 robbery with a gun, we had 0 assault with dangerous weapons excluding gun, we had 1 assault with dangerous weapon gun, which gave us a total of 3 violent crimes in the last 30 days, and we are down in that category. A year ago, the same time frame, we had 6. We had 0 burglaries, 12 thefts, 14 theft from autos, 7 stolen autos, 0 arsons, which gave us a total of property crimes 33, and total crime for the last 30 days was 36. Now, we're still driving our crimes is the property crimes, dealing with the theft from autos and thefts from the stores. And most of our is concentrated in one area, and we are working on it, dealing with Planet Fitness. These guys are still riding around in the cars, breaking in the cars at Planet Fitness at Penn Branch Shopping Center on the lower level. Okay, we do have look out for a couple of vehicles. All the officers know what the vehicles look like, and they're all being searched for. And as soon as we can capture these guys, we can probably decrease that all the way down to 0. Okay. Any questions so far? No? Why y'all looking so sad up in here? I need to smile. Not that bad. Yes, ma'am.
The robberies with Planet Fitness, they occur
Thefts.
at thefts. Okay, are they occurring at night or day or
Morning shift.
in the morning?
Morning shift. And early afternoon.
And early
Mainly in the
afternoon.
morning. Yes. And we've spoken to Planet Fitness managers already, trying to encourage their patrons to, not put their items, once they get on the scene of the parking lot, put their items on the back seat, and where people can see what they're doing. So we've spoken heavily and tried to encourage them to use locks, use the lockers there, and they told the people they could bring their own lock, but use the lockers there. So we've been trying to be proactive in that measure. Okay. But we know it's not any of you all here that come to the meetings. It's usually the people that's not coming to the meetings. Or they don't even live in the area at all. Yes. Okay. Any questions, concerns, complaints? No? Okay. Great. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate you.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you, Officer Marble. I appreciate you. Now, it's Councilmember Gray in the house. Excuse me? Yes, ma'am. Would you like to make some comments or have something to
You
say?
did such a lovely job. So I just want to say real quick, I am Amanda Block from 6th District. I came out tonight because I'm trying to come back out before the summer starts to talk to some of my, it's okay, I think my voice is loud enough, to talk to some of the residents to see what your plans and what you would like to see from the police department as we go into the summer months. So I'll leave my information for you all so you can email me for your issues that you would have. And that's it. I just wanted to, and I also just want to see what your project looks like, your survey looks like.
Okay.
It affects us as well, so.
Yes, oh yes it does. It does indeed. There are some public safety questions of the survey. Well, at this stage, I don't see Councilmember Gray in the room, but we will proceed. Madam, we have a whole lot of chairs up front if you want to join us up here. I'll take a few minutes to review some of the results of the survey, just to give it a little background on the survey. I'm happy to see a lot of our community leaders in the room. Ms. Karen Williams, President of Hillcrest in the back, and Mr. David Redland, President of DuPont Park Civic Association, and Travis Swanson, President of Randall Highland.
Not president, just worker bee.
Oh, I'm sorry. I see you so much. You act in a presidential role, so I think you're the communications outreach chairperson. But anyways, did I miss anybody? Any of our other community leaders to help us with this project, this effort? No? Well, there were 11 community leaders that were involved in us at least getting to the point of producing this survey. I want to recognize them because collectively we all had a part in getting us to the point to do the survey, had done work in the past in regards to the development or lack thereof along the Pennsylvania Avenue corridor. And we also had with us representative from the, let's see, I've got him on the next slide here, from Hillcrest Penn branch. That was myself, Randall Highlands, Marshall Heights Community Development Organization, Pennsylvania Avenue Baptist Church, Pastor Curry. He was gracious enough to join us in those meetings and continuously to give us advice and counsel about how to go forward. We had a representative from the Pennsylvania Avenue East Economic Development Committee. That was an organization that was in place a few years ago that did some awesome work, working with Johns Hopkins group to help develop a website and create a lot of information about what Pennsylvania Avenue could look like, as we called it, the art of the possible at the time. And one of the leave-behinds from that organization was the Penn Avenue East website, which we use to store a lot of the information that we're collecting as we go along in regards to the project. We also had a representative from the Pennsylvania Avenue Corridor East Task Force. Ayanna Smith was part of that task force, as well as Linwood. I can't think of his last name now, but we had a room full of representatives. And at the time, Ayanna had the Pennsylvania Avenue East petition that she was trying to get 1,000 signatures for. And once we got together and realized the awesomeness of what we could accomplish with that Main Street petition in place, all the leaders agreed that we would push forward to help get her over that 1,000 signature mark. We all went back to our respective communities and sent out email blasts to our listservs, and you all may have received one or more of those emails asking you to complete the survey. Well, the last I checked, we had over 1,600, I'm sorry, over almost about 1,100 signatures on the survey. So with that,
On the petition.
I'm sorry, on the petition, yes, excuse me. Well, in addition to agreeing to complete the petition, the group of leaders also agreed to submit letters to Councilmember Gray, using the Main Street as a foundation for us to move forward to help bring more attention to the Pennsylvania Avenue East Corridor. We realized that we were in the middle of the budget cycle, and if we were going to have any influence on the budget, we needed to get Councilmember Gray's attention. And the leaders, we all agreed to submit letters to Councilmember Gray. I want to thank Vivica, our and my right hand in this whole effort, in producing the letters that we all could use collectively to submit to Councilmember Gray. We got those letters in, and thanks to Mr. David in the back of the room, he always encouraged us. How do you say it, David? We got to have a Socratic process. So we engaged with the ANC to get their buy-in and support with writing a letter to Councilmember Gray supporting our ask for a Main Street designation for the Pennsylvania Avenue East Corridor, along with allocating funding in his budget to support that revitalization effort, funding to the tune of $10 million. So those two line items were the primary asks that, as collectively as a group, we put forth to Councilmember Gray in our letters. So this survey came at the end of those other two things, the petition and the letters, as another way to get more feedback from the community as to what you all wanted to see in terms of the development, and how much more support we could garner for our two initiatives. Along with, how many of you have seen Mayor Bowser's green budget guide? I have a copy. Whoops, I have a copy with me here tonight. Actually, it's in my folder right here. But using this budget guide, we included some questions and information from her worksheet in our survey to allow you to be able to respond to some of the comments and the questions in the budget. So collectively, the survey includes the asks for Councilmember Gray, plus feedback that we could give to the mayor and her constituents or deputies in regards to all those different areas. It relates to transportation, healthcare, public safety, what else? Healthcare, public safety, transportation, education, and I think there's one other. But at any rate, we've got the high-level results from that survey in the presentation tonight. And the survey went out to members of all the local communities that we have recognized here: DuPont, Fairlawn, Fairfax Village, Fort Davis, Greenway, Hillcrest, Penn Branch, Randall Highlands, and there were a list of about 6 other places that people thought they lived that wasn't part of a major community, it was other. But at any rate, the top 3 areas that we got feedback from was from DuPont, DuPont Park, Hillcrest, and the purple is Penn Branch, yes. There were, as you can see, there were multiple pages here. There was like 4 pages of locations where people thought they lived in. I didn't put all the locations up here due to the interest of time, but just wanted to show you that we got a good representation of responses from all around the community. There were 160 responses as of March 7th. I know we had advertised that we were going to keep the survey open to March 8th, but we realized at the last minute that we needed some time to pull the results and formulate them into reports and prepare them for tonight. So we cut it off briefly on Saturday night, but we opened the survey back up on Sunday, and I believe it's still open now for anybody that wants to go back in and offer your voice. The first question in the survey had to do with whether or not you would promote jobs and economic development by, whether or not you would support the council member promoting jobs and economic development by adding the $10 million to its budget. And overwhelmingly, 91.3% of the respondents says, of course, yes, we would support that effort. Councilmember Gray, I hope you hurry up and come. The second question was whether or not you would support implementing Pennsylvania Avenue East Main Street. And same thing, 93% of our respondents, that amounted to 149 people, said, of course, I'm sorry, 93% says yes, we would support that. So I think we being the community leaders were spot on when we decided to use the Main Street as the catalyst to move forward. Collectively, the leadership realized and decided, yeah, we could use this to bring more attention to our east of the river corridor, and that was confirmed by the results in our survey. That's all I can, yes.
Well, no, that's what I can't qualify, but the Main Street definition, that's what I was wondering. What exactly were they looking at, taking as Main Street or?
I'm glad you asked that question. I just attended a Main Street training session on Saturday where we were given, and this information is readily available on the Main Street website, and we can put it on the Penn branch website as well. I'm one of those people who's got to take my glasses off to read. But Main Street is part of the DC Department of Small and Local Business Development, which provides services and funding for the Main Street organizations in the District of Columbia. Leaders in these neighborhood organizations assist businesses and coordinate sustainable community-driven efforts to revitalize the neighborhood. And on the back of the program, it lists the requirements for the Main Street, how to get designated. Neighborhood leaders, which there were 11, 12 of us up here, who think their neighborhood needs a Main Streets program should follow these steps. Meet with Ms. Christiana, the coordinator of the DC Main Streets program. Secure support from a council member who will include sufficient funding in next year's DC budget for the designation of a new program. And thirdly, once funds are allocated, DC Main Streets runs a competition to select a nonprofit organization which will receive a grant along with the Main Street designation. And in some other documentation we found, if the street gets designated as Main Street, there's a minimum amount of, one document said $175,000, another said $200,000, but there's a minimum dollar amount that gets allocated to basically stand up a Main Streets program office, if you will, and to bring in resources to actually start doing some assessments and determining what the Main Street is going to do, how you're going to interact with the businesses, assess the areas that are going to be included in the Main Street, and basically start getting support from the community to move that forward. It's a substantial program. At the training session on Saturday, there were Main Street coordinators from like six current Main Streets and there are 24 in the city now. There was one from Barracks Road, Columbia Heights, Congress Heights, H Street, which was the premier Main Street in the country. That gentleman has done an awesome job with coordinating with the businesses and the community to develop and grow and advertise and market H Street as a Main Street. How many of you have participated in the H Street Festival? He talked about having grown that festival from 50 people, with a very small number of businesses when they first started, to over 100,000 people now coming to the Main Street. It's like Black Friday for H Street. Many of the businesses over there generate the most revenue than they do throughout the year during that festival period. Any other question about Main Street? Okay. And let me get back to my correct slide here because I've gone way past. Back to the beginning. Okay, so moving on then with the survey. How many respondents would support the mayor giving not the mayor, but the councilman giving assistance to the current property owners? Once we get established as a Main Street, that typically, well, for some of them, for some of the main streets, they talked about having bought out the existing businesses or giving them assistance with moving to a new location while their building was being reconstructed and whatnot. And 85% of the respondents said they would support allocating funds to make that happen in our area. Quality food establishments. How many of you would support the Main Street for this? Again, 99% of the respondents, 159 people said, yes, we need quality establishments in Ward 7, restaurants, retail options, and what have you. How many of you read the newsletter, the March newsletter? A few people did. How many of you received the March newsletter? I hope everybody did. Okay, well, if you didn't, we have some copies in the back of the room. One of the things I highlighted in the newsletter is that the Highlands Restaurant, they currently have, or they had a location in Northwest on 14th Street, Upper Northwest. And the owner actually lives in Ward 7, in our neighborhood, the Penn Branch neighborhood. And it was announced in the paper last month that he's bringing his restaurant to the shops at Penn Branch. Yay! Yes. So we can look forward to seeing that establishment coming sometime over the summer or between now and fall. But at any rate, we hope to get him as well as Jared Lynch and perhaps some other business owners that'll be moving into the shops at Penn Branch in for a community meeting within the next couple of months. So all this is nothing new, or is it to everybody? In terms of providing a wider variety of neighborhood serving retail establishments, again, 96% of residents want better quality options, retail options within our area. And this slide just shows the results in a different format, these bar charts. We move now to transportation and environment. I know this is very small, you probably can't read it, but we'll make these results available online, probably on the Penn Avenue East website. But this slide basically highlights the options that you were given to select from to indicate which ones you thought were most important to you. In terms of transportation, 132 respondents said to redesign the traffic flow at Pennsylvania Avenue and Minnesota Avenue. Well, that's very timely because I saw the email thread today about DDOT hosting upcoming meetings, community meetings in regards to that location. And
They won't.
are you aware of that?
No, they're not going to host another meeting where they want to execute because we've been delayed by Donald Trump signing off on us getting the land at Lafayette Square. But we finally got it coming out of the White House and back to the district government for the honorable mayor, who stands ready to sign it to give us the federal land that will help us to execute. DDOT's director, as you know, was here October 2019 and explained in detail what the final design was, and that the money for it was set aside and was hidden. So they're moving forward this fall 2020 to execute.
Okay, well, thank you for that update. I know I just saw the headlines, DDOT something today, so, but anyways, we just heard that the plans are in place for that redesign to happen. Is there any place on the DDOT website where we can go and get a rendering of what that design is going to look like?
Yes, it's on their website, www.dc.gov.
Okay, thank you.
Jacqueline is
Yes,
also
ma'am.
on the Penn East Avenue,
Oh.
Penn Avenue East website.
All right, awesome, thank you. One other thing I wanted to highlight here, and there was some email traffic earlier this year in regards to the Sousa Bridge, and 129 respondents, or 80% of the respondents, says, let's beautify the Sousa Bridge through extra lighting and maybe some banners or something to indicate that you're coming to, east of the river, and keep it cleaner. Yes.
I just had them put new lights up on the Sousa Bridge. They're going to paint, and I would ask that you would ask them for what we used to have with July, the last week in June, have them to put up the district flag and the U.S. flag on the poles Because now you have good bright LED lights all the way from, as soon as you come off of the ramp and come across my bridge. And the poles will be painted.
Like right now?
Yes.
Here now? Okay.
We had it done. I've been working on it for 18 months. And we are having the poles painted so they look nice, new, and fresh.
Well, for those who are going to be watching the video, that is Ms. Alberta Paul giving that update in the back. Thank you. Now we move to education. There was quite a few, well, I should say, there were a lot of comments for all of these different categories. There were so many comments, we did not have enough time to massage and analyze all of that data. And we will be getting around to that fairly soon. But for now, we just wanted to give you the high-level reports to show what some of the preliminary results were. But if you look at these results from an education standpoint, 127 respondents wanted to add additional teachers and support staff particularly for the early childhood programs in the schools. The next one was 75% students spend too much time testing, and the parents and residents think that time could be spent doing more creative STEM and other things, as opposed to teaching our kids just to take the test. And from a social work and counselor and nursing standpoint, 141 respondents, or 81%, stated that they would like to see those healthcare professionals, more of the healthcare professionals within our schools to help our children deal with a lot of the trauma and other things that they bring to school and that prevents them from learning. Affordable housing was another category from Mayor Bowser's booklet. All right. From an affordable housing standpoint, we had 80% of the respondents said we need to create more attractive mixed use and retail housing options for our residents. And as you see, there were a whole lot of other options here to choose from, but the top two were trash pickup along the Pennsylvania Avenue East Corridor and more housing options that we'd like to see. Yes, sir.
I have a question, but when it comes to affordable housing, what exactly does that mean? Because I've seen these prices sometimes, and based on salaries, and it still just is not really affordable, in my opinion. And I think there's too much of a stigma around. There's also a stigma around affordable housing. People automatically assume, come on, people associate words with imagery and whatnot, so they assume it's going to be poor, low income, and destroying the neighborhood. Most times, it's not, especially in this area. I mean, there are people who are working class, who need a good, decent place to live, and the rates are just astronomical.
Yes, they are. Well, I must say,
when they put their formulas together, that's like what's affordable. It takes like a household of 5, making $30,000 a year, and it's just like there are a whole lot of other people that maybe a household of 2 or 3 that make a little bit more than that, but should be able to qualify for affordable housing, and they can't.
well, I would suggest you ask Councilmember Gray that question when he gets in the room, because I haven't looked at the numbers or the information that closely to know what their definition of affordable housing is. So I will just rather table it and have him address that when he comes.
I'll just
Yes,
add
Ms.
one
Richards.
thing about that. The metric used for inclusionary zoning and for lots of other projects is a very harsh one. That's the one that does say 119,000 for a family of 4. But the bottom line is a lot of housing, affordable housing developments say you have to make 60% of that at least to qualify, and 80% for a purchase. And the bottom level of affordability under that metric is actually higher than the median income in Ward 7 and Ward 8. And that's been the case for some time. So if you're talking about affordable housing in that inclusionary zoning sense, that is actually a vehicle of displacement for east of the river. The other kinds of affordable housing are the ones like the Grays, where it's workforce housing, and you can make so much money, and you can't make above so much money rental house, so there's an income band. But even that, on the low end, you know, you have to make, I think when the Grays opened and they were still looking for the renters, you still had to make about $40,000 for maybe an individual to live in a one bedroom. So I hope you will challenge to affordable. The new comp plan addresses these issues in much more detail than the old comp plan did, and is growing awareness of this conundrum.
Okay, well, thank you for that, that update. But again, that's one of the reasons why we invited Councilmember Gray here this evening, so that we all could ask him the tough questions and put him in the hot seat and have him respond to us. Another affordable housing question, which items will report to you regarding housing? 143 respondents, or 89%, says the ability to continue to live in DC. Yeah, we all live here now, but as the housing prices increase, property values increase, it may jeopardize us being able to afford to live here in the future. Or if we all were to sell our houses tomorrow, would we be able to afford to come back to the district and live in an apartment even? Or even to buy in our same neighborhoods. I think in that case, we'd all, or many of us, may be priced out of the neighborhood, including me. So yes, housing is, affordable housing is definitely a key area that we have a lot of comments on. Now we move to the healthcare options that were in the survey. We asked the question, do you support building a new hospital east of the river? 95% of the respondents, or 153 people, said absolutely yes, we would support the hospital. And a lot of people, of course, I think the number was about 86% or higher, said they were aware that there was not an existing hospital in Ward 7. Would you go to that hospital east of the river? 85% says, yes, I would go. I certainly would go, depending on, you know, if I could get the same quality of care within my own neighborhood that I get over in Northwest, Georgetown, or any place else. Of course I would support it. Yes, ma'am.
Tracy, I did just testify in front of Vincent Gray, the Committee on Health, regarding in support of a new hospital for Ward 7. Currently, we have United Medical, and United Medical is not equipped to handle what we're asking for. And when you look at a level 1 designation for a hospital, that means you have some of the same amenities that you would see maybe on the other side of town. But right now, it seems to be some red tape. So we're constantly fighting for this hospital to be built without closure of the current hospital in 2023. You know, so what would we be left with? Building urgent care centers is fine, but you need a state-of-the-art, full-service, high-risk for pregnancy and other services. If I got injured, I would want to stay at my hospital and convalesce maybe, or get treatment instead of shipping me all across town. And that's exactly what's going to happen.
And one of the other questions in the survey that I didn't put the results up here were the types of services that you'd want to see in a hospital. And I believe the number one was emergency services and I want to say physical therapy and prenatal care as well. So we've got the information, we've got the data to support what we're asking for. So we definitely want to make sure Councilmember Gray gets this information, all of the councilmen, even the mayor get this information, so that they can know that we're not just, you know, running off at the mouth and, you know, complaining about things. We, as a community, this is what we feel we need. And moving on then to, would like to welcome our ANC chairperson, D.L. Humphrey, just came to, is at the back of the room. Came in at a very good time, D.L.
All right, doing great.
We just got a couple more of these slides, and are you representing Councilmember Gray this evening?
No, he's actually en route. He just got finished talking to the mayor about the budget, and so he's en route right now.
Okay.
So he was talking about the hospital, so he's en route as we speak.
Well, I was really hoping he'd be here to hear this piece of the presentation, but we've got some questions for him queued up anyway. Okay, so from a public safety standpoint, There were some things, categories that are notable here. 145 or 90% of the respondents says we need more addiction and mental health services for our officers to be able to respond to those types of situations that they come across. People that they encounter, a lot of times they have some issues that the officers need to be better trained on how to deal with those individuals. And also from a 90% of other respondents says we need expanded life and job skills program for our officers as well. And we've got a whole lot of comments around public safety as well that we'd like to share. Oh, that's the last one. Okay, that concludes the preliminary results from the survey. As I said, there are other questions that we have graphs and charts for, as well as a lot of raw data that we need to get some analysis tools and crunch some of those metrics. So if anyone is interested in getting some of this information, I know we'll be distributing it to the leaders. Yes.
Are you going
I'm sorry.
Are you going to post this on the Penn Branch website so we can look at it,
Right, and digest.
Yeah, and I know some of the charts, you can't read unless you are actually at your computer. So will this be posted?
Yes, a subset of the information will be, yes.
The whole thing that you showed, when you say it's a subset of the whole thing.
Well, this is yes, we can post this on the Penn Branch website, as well as the Penn Avenue East website.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
There's an existing Main Street, first of all, Main Street community existed for 15 years and will continue to. And they upped the ante to $15 million to put in the pot east of River thanks to your pressure.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please? You said there is a Main Street?
We have the only Main Street so far east of the river. It's along Nettie Helen Burroughs. Dr. Jones runs the Main Street. It started small and it's... Right.
There's two Main Streets
Right.
east of the river now.
Yeah, well, the point is, she's a very good contact.
Yes.
She started teeny. She's getting it to be bigger, similar to what you talked about on 8th Street. So I'm just throwing out, and she's very friendly.
Yes, some of our members have been in touch with her.
Okay.
Or some of our community leaders have been in touch with her.
Two, if you really wanna kick butt and take no hostages and make this happen in 2 years, DSLBD director, you need to sit down as a task force and work with them to up the money that you get initially, because $200,000 is not going to get you a whole lot. And lastly, DSLBD has committed through Mr. Gray's office to keep Pennsylvania Avenue clean, and they have hired DC residents for the last 3.5 years who have been sweeping, and it's disgusting to us that communities throw trash along our corridor. But those young men do get out there between 6 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. 3 days a week, every day, for the last 3 years. So please, as you're talking to DSLBD, acknowledge the fact you're grateful for the little bit we got. Because I don't want them to think that we don't know that they're already paying to keep Pennsylvania Avenue clean. That's all I wanted to say.
Right,
they're doing an excellent job. They're high school students.
Yes, sir.
We just have, she wants to share some information with the coronavirus if we have time.
Oh, yes, please, do you?
As a healthcare provider. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tracy Spandowning. I am a registered nurse, master's prepared from Howard University, and I like to give my credentials because they always ask, well, what made you able to speak on this here. Whenever we speak about any type of viruses or health issues, we get our information from that society, association, the CDC, World Health Organization, or the Department of Health, which is now DC Health. And I do have a few flyers for you. Today, I just want to quickly bring to your attention about the coronavirus disease 19, or COVID-19 for short. It was first recognized in Wuhan, China in 2019 in December. But right now, that's how we have our designation as COVID-19. COVID-19 is what's called a novel virus. And when they say novel, that means it has never been seen before. So you have a huge family of coronaviruses, first of all. If you remember SARS in 2002 or 2003, that's a form of a coronavirus. But this particular strand, they have never seen before. They want to know what, you have this reservoir, did it jump from there to the animal, or from the animal to the human? So it's a lot of research is being done on this particular type of virus. Typically, they say, though, that the animal coronavirus, which is normally seen in cattle, camels, cats, and bats, do not typically go from an animal to a human and then spread person to person. So that's where the concern is. And because it's such a mysterious disease, although we know that coronaviruses have been around, you have to just maintain what they call the basics as hand washing, which we know is the main way to prevent spread of infection. Do not touch your face with unwashed hands, because you know your eyes, your nose, and your mouth are ports where germs can enter your body. If you know you have not traveled to China, you may be okay, but if you have come in contact with someone that you know that has traveled outside of the states or into any of these particular areas that have known to have a lot of persons with the coronavirus, they do recommend that you either self-quarantine, and if you find that you are having a fever, a cough, and shortness of breath, that you are to call your healthcare provider and to alert them to that, because they may tell you to either come in or to quarantine yourself. Viruses, no cure. It has to run its course. Antibiotics can kill the bacteria, but definitely not with viruses. So that's why it's so important that we eat right, exercise, and to take your vitamins so that you can create a healthy, a healthy body for yourself in order to fight off any type of viruses. Right now, the DMV is seeing about 7 cases. And I think it's migrating, because I understand that China really has not really spoke on any new, real bad cases there. But it is seemingly to now traveling to here in our state. Some schools have opted to close. You're on spring break. Some are recommending to come back just a little bit later, just to make sure that the schools are clean, put it that way, because they're living in close contact in the dorms, and some of our local high schools have opted to do the same. So wash your hands, use your hand sanitizer with 60% isopropyl or 70% alcohol. Wash your hands 20 seconds or more. Oh, okay, thank you. And I just
Thank you,
asked
Tracy,
them,
for that update.
info I was going to take.
Thank you, appreciate it. And we also have links to the DC coronavirus website from the Penn branch website as well. And I've tried to keep it updated with some of the current information, but it's coming out faster than we can actually keep it updated. So please check with the DC websites for the most current up-to-date information. Well, one second. Dr. Hampton.
Just back to the Main Street, how did you get the $10 million number? Is there a certain number of, the square footage, or is there a certain number of initiatives that you all want to put in, or how did that number come about?
Well, it was, I'll let Ms. Vivica. The question was, how do we come up with the $10 million ask for the Councilmember Gray's budget line item for the revitalization effort? And there was a method to it, and I'll let Ms. Vivica share with that.
Okay, I don't know if many of you know this, but back in 2009, there was money designated for revitalization of Pennsylvania Avenue. Now, some of that money was used for the Grays, the building at 2300 block. All of the money was not used. Some of the money was turned back. Vincent Gray turned some of that money back to the city. So what was in the budget was around $9 million, close to 10. So we just used $10 million going forward.
And as part of some of those early bills and documentations that we came across, they used the assessed value of some of those properties along Pennsylvania Avenue to come up with that number. There was properties on Pennsylvania Avenue, properties on Good Hope Road, properties on Minnesota Avenue that were identified as properties that could be acquired as part of the revitalization effort. Yes.
I thought that for Main Street, we were not looking to acquire buildings, we were looking to redevelop the existing buildings or spruce them up.
Well, it's part of the whole Main Street process. What we are really looking for, or was primarily looking for to start with, was getting the funding, getting the monies allocated so that we could assess what would be the best thing for the community, whether to acquire, whether to reconstruct, rebuild, or whatever. So at this point, we're not suggesting that one way or the other take place. We're just trying to get the money allocated, the funds in the budget first, and whoever becomes the Main Street program office to manage that whole process. That would be part of their job, is to determine, you work with the businesses, work with the developers, the architect, to decide how the streets are going to look and what it would entail going forward.
Are we going into this with any thoughts on, eminent domain? Because, we haven't had to eminently domain this corridor yet, and we've always sort of been opposed to it here in this neighborhood, because we don't want to be eminently domained out ourselves. Even when the Grays was built, that was built in economic partnership with the existing businesses and owners. I mean, they didn't make as much money as they thought they were going to make, because everyone thought it would be more successful. But, that was a partnership, and so I would hope we are not eminently domaining people.
Well, that, again, we have not had those discussions yet, Ms. Richardson, and it may be part of the conversation down the road, but right now, like I said, our focus has been just getting the funding allocated in the budget.
Okay, well, just as an early point of principle, I hope that this civic association will support not having Main Street without eminent domain.
Well, I can tell you from what I heard on Saturday at the Main Street training program, there were businesses in the other, or properties in the other Main Streets that were acquired as part of eminent domain. In fact, right down in Anacostia at the corner of Good Hope Road and Martin Luther King Avenue, that property was acquired via eminent domain.
It can be done, but it doesn't have to be done. It's kind of a moral thing.
Okay. Ms. Crockett?
No. I tried to fill out your form after getting about 6 or 7 emails from you.
Yeah, you're getting them.
And finally, I said, well, let me go ahead and fill this out so Jacqueline stopped sending me these emails. And I completed the form and got to the end, and it rejected my form because there were a couple of pages with questions about city programs that I knew nothing about, and therefore did not feel qualified to evaluate them. And it would not accept my form without my putting some kind of evaluation of those programs.
Okay.
So you lost my contribution, and I wonder if you lost the contribution of any other people.
I wondered that too. That's certainly something we can fix. We'll just go back and tweak it a little bit to maybe add another option there, not applicable or something.
Well, we tried to add a non-applicable or other for every question, pretty much. Sorry you experienced that.
There are at least 2 pages that didn't have it.
Okay, well, sorry that you experienced that.
Okay. We'll talk with you offline to kind of walk through that again and see specifically which ones we need to go back and tweak. Okay? One last question before we move on. Oh, I'm sorry. Dale, you've been very patient in the back.
Go ahead, Earl, and then I'll almost go to
I was simply going to say that eminent domain is a tool, and so you should never just eliminate all your tools out of your box. Just keep it as a tool in the box.
Okay, thank you. Tracy, did you have another question?
I kind of had the same concern. I know the questions seemingly are if you, well, it looks like majority are agreeing to some of the, the questions which are given, but I think we have to have some caution too. Because what I wanted to know was when you say Main Street, although this person is, whatever the Main Street do, I think they help raise funds, you say, to revitalize?
No, the Main Street designation just allows the council member to designate funds to, well, we have to identify that we want to beautify this Pennsylvania Avenue East corridor. And once collectively as a community we decide that's what we want, then we have to go to the council member and say, you know, add some funds to your budget, line items to your budget to support this redevelopment effort. So once the money gets allocated, then that goes out to bid to identify an organization that can manage that whole process.
See, that's what I'm afraid of,
What's
because
that?
when you have, well, it depends. Hopefully they're not looking at building another this, another that, another condo, another something that will bring a lot of traffic into the area, bring a lot of who knows what. We know
It's revitalization.
It might be,
So,
okay.
Revitalization means it will be a more modern look. It'll be a look that the community has input into. The businesses will have input to it. There will be resources, you know, the professional resources within the Main Street Program Office itself to help lead and guide us in that effort. But the main thing that I want everybody to understand is that the community will have input and involvement as to how our Main Street looks. And
I
that's,
just don't want a lease to go, if it's a lease that will end and boom, okay, we're gonna close this business and build something because that lease was only for 60 years and not 99-year lease or something, you know what I'm saying?
well, I do, and again, we will have representatives in the program office, and from what I learned on Saturday, there's a Main Street board. I mean, if we get a Pennsylvania Avenue east of the river, Main Street, there's a board that will consist of many members from the community, members from the business community, members from the development community, perhaps even from the local leadership at the ANC level, but everybody will have a voice into how the area gets redeveloped and revitalized. And in fact, that's what we're going to be pushing for, that we have control over what happens within our neighborhood. I think was there somebody else, DL?
I just want to re-emphasize again, the previous people who were ANC chairs, Vivica might remember, Ms. Smith used to be active with the original Main Street. Your designation is there. Your movement of the money, like she said, is what I'm trying to tell y'all. Y'all got the money. Y'all need to be talking to the right person, because it's not going to be...
Well, what do you mean we got the money? Are you saying you know what's going to be in the budget for the FY21 budget?
Ma'am, if you look at the DSLBD and the Deputy Mayor Economic Development's budget, it's in there. All I'm just, I support what you're doing.
Well, thank you. We didn't know that. Thank you.
I'm just trying to say, let's not reinvent the wheel. Pennsylvania Avenue is already a main street. It's all, you got that.
It's designated as a great street.
It's a main street and a great street. Look it up, seriously. I'm not trying to conflict. I'm just trying to say, your task force needs to understand that it exists. The funding is being looked at to be transferred back and to round up to the $10 million that Ms. Smith, Vivica Miller,
well, that's great news. We weren't aware of that, so that's great news.
But the two parties that you want to keep working with is DSLBD.
Yes, I met the director of that program on Saturday.
The alphabet soup, Deputy Mayor of Economic Development's coordinator for Ward 7, and OP's planner for Ward 7, who lives somewhere near you, Deborah Crane Smith. Her name is Deborah Crane Smith, the planner for Ward 7. So if you just get them three people together in the midnight in darkness, you get what you want. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that information. DL, did you have some key points? There he is. Let's give him a round of applause. Councilmember Gray, as he comes to the room. Right on time.
So I'm not going to be long. I just wanted to make sure that everyone first. Good evening, Penn Branch. How you doing? Good evening. All right. Good evening. So I really wanted to be brief. I want to piggyback on what Ms. Alberta Paul stated when it came to the DSLB and the clean team. On last year, December of December 18th, I reached out to DSLBD and I kind of wanted to give them a couple questions to see where they were with the whole clean team services on Pennsylvania Avenue. So, and I can send this information to you, and you can disseminate it. And I'm just going to be very, very brief. I asked what was the current work being done to keep Pennsylvania Avenue clean. They say litter removal, and they had several different things, recycling, graffiti removal as well, illegal posters and sticker removal, snow and ice removal as well, weeding, mowing grass, mulching tree boxes, public space, effect recording on street tree watering, landscaping, and also I think which is an important piece is that the actual hours for the clean team. And so on Sundays, there's no service. On Mondays, the service starts at 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. On Tuesdays, so once again, 7 a.m. to 3. And they only go from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. from Monday through Fridays, and on Saturdays, there's no service. They did state that they do will not work the following holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year, so on and so forth. But they stated that this program was slated to be going on from October the 1st, 2019 through September the 30th of 2020, which includes 52 weeks of service. So I kind of just wanted to give y'all that information, you know, and like I said, I will share this information with your president so, you know, it can be disseminated throughout the community, and you all know this is what we're doing in council just to make sure that, you know, we keep that particular area clean, because I got a couple of complaints. I know I got a complaint from you, Ms. Miller, and a couple other citizens and residents of District of Columbia and Ward 7 stating, hey, why does this side of Pennsylvania Avenue not look like the other side of Pennsylvania Avenue? And so we're going to make sure to keep that going, and you know, we have people in the council office that's working to make sure that happens. So just to let you know, and I'll take any questions real quick, and definitely want to give my councilman. Sure, I got you, Ms. Miller.
I appreciate that DSLB has this clean team, but they are only doing a certain little area. They're not cleaning in those median strips. It seems like they stop at Minnesota and they don't go from Minnesota down to the Sousa Bridge.
Okay.
And it's not consistent. I don't know what they're doing, but they're not keeping that area clean. I have put in, I don't know how, weekly, I pretty much put in a 311 complaint.
Give me a call, I'll make sure to follow up and have a supervisor or the director to follow up with you on that. Definitely.
Okay, my complaint is the same as hers. It is not clean.
Okay.
It's like you're driving through the city dump when you drive from our neighborhood across the bridge into Capitol Hill. You get to Capitol Hill, it's clean. But here it looks like a garbage dump. This is unacceptable.
Okay. All right, so what I always do, I try my best to be the most accessible ANC commissioner, chairman, and also the most accessible representative when it comes to deputy director for Councilman Vincent Gray. I want to give you all my cell phone number, my personal cell phone number, so you can give me a call, and we can actually follow up. So I'm going to do that, and I know I got you, Ms. Richards, and I know this young lady right here. So let me give you my cell phone number right now. I know, Ms. Miller, you already have it. You want to write it down. It's the same number. So there's no secret number. So it's 202-276-3307. Even the councilman had this number. So 202-276-3307. I would say it one more time for good reference. 202-276-3307. Let me get this young lady, then I have Ms. Laura Richards. Yes, ma'am.
So I used to live in a different neighborhood, and I recently moved over here, and one of the things that I've noticed, obviously, is the trash, but also the lack of just trash cans. People, you know, we had trash cans on every block, at this end of the block and that end of the block, and there are no trash cans here. Even if you wanted to be responsible and put your litter in the trash cans, you cannot do it. And the other issue that's recently come up is also with the dog waste. So people are willing, they're more than willing to put out the little bag holders. Well, what are we supposed to do with the bags? We need trash cans, and we need people to empty those trash cans like they have in all the other neighborhoods. The people cleaning up the street is fine, but we have a responsibility to our own neighborhoods. But y'all have to make it easy for us to just put the stuff in the trash can instead of throwing it in all the green space that we have, which is much easier than carrying it home with you.
I totally agree with you. One of the biggest concerns that we had, because I actually asked that question, and one of the biggest things is that people, they came back and said that when they dump the trash cans, it's early in the morning, and so it's, you know, basically disrupting neighborhoods when they come to dump the trash cans. So I mean, that's something that I can follow up again and see exactly where they are. But that was the biggest complaint or the biggest concern that DPW had, is that when they do go through the neighborhoods to pick up the trash, if we put more trash cans down, then the residents have to understand, you go to hear the trash can, like you hear Fridays, I know that my service is about Fridays, and so if you don't have a problem with that, and other neighborhoods, I don't have a problem with it, I'd much rather have it than not have it. So I completely understand where you're coming from.
But also, you know, I think I'm gonna take you to task on that, because
Please.
again, I used to live in another different neighborhood
Okay.
across the river. I never heard them picking up the trash on the corners early in the morning.
Well, please give me a call.
They can pick it up at 10 a.m.
No problem.
after I wake up.
And I'll make sure to leave some cars in there. No problem. So I'll make sure, please give me a call and we'll talk. Definitely. Ms. Richard, I have the last question, and then I want to make sure Councilman.
Real quick.
Yes.
I noticed that we've tried several different kinds of planting on the median strips to see what's going to work well, and I see we're still working on that, so keep it up till you find that sweet spot. And then we have those little kind of iron gate fences around the, yes, which somehow always seem to be in a state of collapse. And if that's not the answer, then let's go to the next step. But I noticed on Minnesota Avenue, they have those kind of UV-type pipes along the, but I don't think we really like those. That's
No, those are very unsightly.
Very unsightly.
About Minnesota Avenue, so we still have to do some work when it comes to the iron gates. Seem like people like to run over top of them. I don't know why, but you know, I will make sure to follow up, because I know right there in front of CVS and you know, the laundromat, it looks like, you know, a weed forest there. And so, you know, I know, as people say, we will not see that in any other neighborhood. And we will not accept that in Ward 7. And so believe me, I'm working, and the councilman is working to make sure that we get those things addressed. So
well,
we do
once
hear you.
CVS is there, it's not going to be the same. I mean, there's some kind of things where you change your look by changing your tenant.
Well, let's do it before CVS gets there, because we got to do some definitely work around there, and we won't deserve. We will not settle for less than that. So I got you on that. So with that being said, I'm going to move along and turn it back over to Short. Thank you. And I also have some tickets to give away, so I'll make sure I give those to the council, maybe he will give one.
Thank you, DL, we appreciate it. And we're not going to belabor the hour. Councilmember Gray arrived, and before he comes up, I just want to kind of set the stage a little bit, Councilmember Gray. You missed our presentation of the survey results a little while ago, and there was some real good solid feedback and data that we've collected that shows, and I think just punctuates the fact that our neighbors, they want to see change. They want to see change, starting with the Main Street, a designation for Pennsylvania Avenue east of the river. We want to see change and have the funding allocated for the revitalization effort. The hospital, want to see the hospital, and we can share all of these results with you, but we really, from a community leader standpoint, we have some of the leaders in the room that worked very hard with flooding your office with all those letters you received. And I want to publicly also thank Ayanna Smith, who started that Main Street petition to begin with, and kind of got this whole thing rolling at this point in time. And we really feel strongly that we need your support in allocating the funding and helping us to move our community forward. We've documented 10 years worth of documentation and funding that was allocated, that was reallocated, and that disappeared, and we really just all believe that it's time to see positive change along this Pennsylvania Avenue corridor within our community. So with that in mind, please come in and share your thoughts with us about that and whether or not you support it.
Everybody doing the elbow bumps now?
Yes.
Well, I tell you, I was in the Wilson building until I came over here. I had a meeting with the mayor to present, our budget priorities, and a lot of the information that we've gathered from, folks across the ward, including the Pennsylvania Avenue Revitalization. So We're going to continue to work with that. We put a lot of money in terms of requests. I don't know what we'll get out of this, but we actually put $10 million in there to start the process for revitalization. Pardon?
Did I hear that correct? We've got the $10 million in?
No, I can't, no, but it hasn't come out yet. No, I cannot make that statement. Oh, I put it in my budget request. So I presented it today, that's why I was late. I was there presenting our budget priorities, so yes, it was in my priorities. In fact, I think you'll be getting a copy of the letter. You'll get it, absolutely. There are lots of requests that we made in the budget, and I was happy to be able to do that. We'll work, we'll work hard, as we've done before, to try to bring the things to our community that people want.
What about the Main Street?
Main Street, yeah, we have to put Main Street too. And we'll continue to work on that. You mentioned the hospital also. I hope everybody knows that I couldn't be more of an advocate for the hospital. Man, I've been working on that since I was a mayor. When I was a mayor, we had in the budget $336 million to build a new hospital. And by the time I got back, you all know what happened to me. I've never quite gotten over that. But I love public service. I love doing things for people. And that's why I love to come out to all these meetings so I can talk to people and hear the comments and the questions and whatnot. But we had $336 million in the budget, which was more than enough to be able to build a new hospital. And when I got back, anybody remember? Laura, you good about remembering these kinds of things, but how much was left in the budget?
It slashed. It was under $100 million, and the hospital kept shrinking and shrinking and shrinking.
Shrank, that's right. It was $96 million left. When I got back, they were getting ready to try to figure out how to do something else with that. They were going to make a maintenance fund out of it. And the first thing we did, for those of you who remember, we had this group called Revitalization that was running the hospital. And we had 3 deaths. When I first got back in the first 6 months, we had 3 deaths at the hospital. And I worked very hard to get Veritas out of there because they weren't running the hospital properly at all. So we got Veritas out of there, and then we went a few months without having an official operator there. And so we got a contract, we got a request for proposals out. And by the following February, which is now going into a second year, we had a new operator, Mazars. They're now operating the hospital, and they have a new CEO running the hospital. And she came to my hearing last week, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But what we have in the budget now, from the $96 million, we've gotten it back up to $325.5 million to build a new hospital. And the conversation I just had with the mayor was to verify that we are going to move forward with this hospital and get it done. Isn't it time, y'all? Everybody should have a great healthcare system to be able to plug into. And by the way, just so I'm clear, we have not only the commitment and the administration has selected George Washington University to be the operator of the hospital. We're still waiting for the proposed contract to come over to the council, which I'm sure will be in a matter of weeks before we get the proposed contract. And hopefully it will set the terms and conditions for how we move forward. One of the other things I should say about that, because I talk about healthcare all the time. I chair the health committee, many of you know that, of course. But we really are trying to build a real healthcare system over on our side of the city. And that includes the building of the new hospital. It also includes, are you all aware that we have never had, in the entirety of the history of the city, an urgent care center in either Ward 7 or Ward 8? Not one. Not one. For 160,000 people, we got 70-some thousand people living in, 75,000 or so living in Ward 7, and we got about the same number who live in Ward 8. We have never had an urgent care center. That's one of the reasons why so many of our folks wind up going to emergency rooms, which is really the most inefficient way imaginable to be able to try to take care of yourself. So that's going to end. We have an urgent care center now, a group that is bought a building at Nanny Helen Burroughs and Division Avenue, and they have indicated hopefully by the middle of May, they will have opened a new urgent care center. At a hearing I had last week, there was a gentleman that came to the table, and he said, you know, I know that you've gotten this group that's going to open an urgent care center at Nanny Helen Burroughs and Division. He said, I want to open an urgent care center also. I said, well, be my guest. I said, go through the certificate of need process. I can't imagine that anybody would say that they don't have a need, that we don't have a need for those kinds of services here. So as he goes through the process, we'll be happy to keep you informed as what we're doing with that. But we could wind up with 2 urgent care centers, which would be a first in the history of the city. 2 urgent care centers here in Ward 7, mind you, 2 in Ward 7. So that'll be a first. Karen and Earl, what do you think?
That's a good idea.
In addition to that, and Earl, we all know that you've been working aggressively, assertively on the Skyland Town Center. And we've got a commitment now from the developers, Chris Smith and Gary Rappaport, to build a medical services building that will have 14 specialties that will be located in Skyland. Of course, that's just up the street and around the corner. That building will be built as a part of the development of Skyland, and there will be, again, specialty services that will be provided by docs in that building. We have never had that kind of service over here, ever. And we've had a couple of doctors here and there, but we've never had that kind of concentration of healthcare services in one place. In addition to that, we also have worked with Civic, which I suspect you all know is owned by Johns Hopkins, which is the foremost healthcare provider in the world, I think. And they have now brought to Parkside, in the Unity Clinic, they have brought their oncology services to Unity Clinic, and that's a first, to say the least. So we have them, we have Whitman Walker now that's coming to the east side of the city. They are building a couple of health office buildings there. So we're going to wind up creating a real concentration of healthcare services for us on this side of the river. And y'all think we need it? Yes. Okay, then we're going to work and make that happen. And we got a couple of 3 of those services already open. Like I said, the urgent care center is coming. Maybe there'll be a second one. The oncology services that I just talked about, they're going to be, they already are in Parkside, in the Unity Clinic, and in Skyland. There's going to be a lot going on, and you may have already talked about some of this, Earl. I don't know, but we're going to have, we have now the Skyland Workforce Center is right there on Grove Road, right across the street. And we got the first ever coming drive-through Starbucks. Drive-through Starbucks that will be located there as well.
In Skyland?
In Skyland, yes. Drive-through, absolutely. So that's coming. That's being built. There's a commitment to get that done, and we're excited about it. Aren't we, Earl and Karen? Aren't we excited about that? Absolutely. Anyway, in addition to what I just talked about already, we also are in the middle of, just finished up, Oversight Hearings, which we do every year from late January to the middle of March. I had 5 hearings. I've had 5 hearings. I had one last week that lasted 13 hours. That was a long hearing, to say the least. We started at 10 in the morning, and we finished at 10:45 p.m. And you're talking about somebody was tired after that. I was really tired, but you know what? It was worth it to have that kind of conversation with folks because of what we had going on. We also had, at that hearing, we had an oversight hearing at the same time on the existing hospital. People have asked me about the existing hospital. That hospital will stay open until the new hospital is finished. And we're working to make sure that happens because even though the census is down, there are a lot of people now that don't go to UMC anymore. I don't know how many people here go to UMC, but a lot of people just rejected UMC. But the new hospital will be completely different. It will be a newly built hospital from the ground up. And there will be lots of opportunities in addition to that services that are going to be provided there as well, along with the equipment walker services that are going to be developed there as well. So we had that hearing. We have a new CEO at the hospital, and I'm assuming that she will be there until the new hospital opens. Whether she'll be the CEO of the new hospital is not my call at this stage, but we'll see how well she does with the current UMC, and we'll go from there. We also have had oversight hearings on the Department of Healthcare Finance, which they are involved, of course, in managing our public health insurance programs. Medicaid is managed through Healthcare Finance, as well as the Alliance. The Alliance is a locally created, locally operated health insurance program. And we're working on legislation there, by the way, to try to make it easier for people to go through the recertification process. We've talked to the Deputy Mayor about that. Wayne Turner, some of you all I'm sure know Wayne. And we're working to try to streamline the process, because what you have is people who are showing up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and have to get online so they can get a spot and not have to stay there for 2 days in order to be served. That's unconscionable, ladies and gentlemen. We should not have to do that. Nobody should have to do that, and we're working to change that as quickly as we possibly can. We've also had an oversight hearing on the Department of Behavioral Health. Everybody familiar with behavioral health? Yeah, when I got back, we had a director. When I left, Steve Barron was the director. He retired, and they brought this lady in, and man, she was just not suited for the job. So we worked, and we have a new director. She was there at one point. She went off to Maryland, had a major job in Maryland, the state of Maryland, and she's back now as the director of the Department of Behavioral Health, Dr. Basran. Anybody heard her name? Yeah, Dr. Basran is good, and she's got SANEs, she's got behavioral health, she's got other like substance use disorders are under her as well. So we've had that hearing, and we've had the Department of Health already as well under Dr. Nesbitt's leadership. So we've had some vigorous, active conversation about the agencies that are under my purview. In addition to that, we also, like I said, I did the submission. I think our letter was about 25 pages, listing everything that people said they wanted to see in the budget. I put it together because I'm not going to go through something and say, well, I think you shouldn't ask for that. I think you should ask for this. I think you should ask for that. I put it all there, and we put justification for it in the letter that went forward, and includes the revitalization, the Main Street and revitalization of Pennsylvania Avenue. And we will work as hard as we can to try to make that happen. So, and I hope you all, I know Penn Branch well enough to know how vigorous you all are in getting stuff done. So I hope you all will work with me also to make that happen. Thank you. So, in any event, a couple more things, and then I'll take any questions that you all want to ask. We included, again, the Main Street, as well as the revitalization of the avenue. You all may have seen a piece of legislation that was introduced within recent days that would create virtually free metro. So, and I was a co-sponsor of the bill. And you may ask, why didn't you co-introduce it? The reason why I didn't co-introduce it is because if you look at the funding that's proposed to go in there, it's money that's would come out of our reserves to do that. And I haven't supported that. I supported about another piece of legislation by saying, look, I've been working hard to try to create funding for our birth to 3 service. We got the bill passed. By the way, I don't know how many of y'all saw that. I did an op-ed piece on it, but on our pre-kindergarten programs, we have the most robust pre-kindergarten program in America at this stage, none unmatched. And the thing I wanted to look at, the test that just came out at the end of October, was what is the score of our 8th graders? And you go like, what's that got to do with 3 and 4-year-old kids? I said, well, the kids who are 3 and 4 years old, they are now in the 8th grade when we first started the universal pre-kindergarten. And I wanted to see how well they had done. And what was really gratifying to me was to look at it and see that Our 8th graders, the ones who were tested, because they test every 2 years, they test the 4th graders and the 8th graders. Our 8th graders, who were the young kids that we started in pre-K, they had the best reading scores in America. Not just in DC, the best reading scores in America. And they're doing better with math as well. It corroborated for me the validity, the value of investing in early childhood education. That's why I've been such an advocate for the Birth to 3 program that we now have gotten partially funded. And in this budget, I've tried to get additional money to be able to have it fully funded so that we can continue to go forward with that. The bill I was talking about, and that's the reason why I turned to it, is the Metro bill. That bill will be funded from dollars that I believe should be available to our early childhood education program for our very youngest of children. And we want to fund or support the kids who are the youngest minds in the District of Columbia. And so, if this thing were funded now, the way it's been put before the council, it would have taken all the money that we wouldn't have a dollar left to be able to use for our Birth to 3 program. So, my proposal was, which I introduced in legislation, was to say, look, if you're going to put half of the money over here for Metro, let's put the other half of the money for our Birth to 3 kids, because our children deserve it. And our children should have the same support as anybody else. So if you see that come up for a hearing, you'll see me talking about the Birth to 3 program and being very proud of what we've been able to do with that. We also have been working on another issue too, and I did legislation on this, and that is to deal with food deserts. We got food deserts over here. Everybody knows that, right? We got food deserts. In fact, we got a grocery store coming to Skyland. Lidl is coming to Skyland. And we included, in Ward 7, I included six sites in there to be, hopefully to be funded. Those 6 sites are Skyland, Penn Branch, where we need a grocery store also. We got Deanwood. We got Parkside. We got East River Park, which is going to be redeveloped completely. The plan has been approved for that. And Parkside. Did I say Parkside? Yeah. Yeah, okay. I left out something. It'll come back to me. Okay, so I apologize for that. But there are 6 sites for which we are seeking support in this budget also to try to deal with the food deserts over here on our side of the river. In addition to that, I'm not going to go through all the budget priorities. I'll be happy to answer any questions other than ones I already have about. I can see. Okay.
Yes, we do have a couple of other items on the agenda.
Okay. All right. I got you. Okay. I tell you what I'll be happy to do now. How about if I just open it up for a question? Y'all okay with that?
Yes.
Right there, and then you won't raise your hand. Okay. Go right ahead and here.
How you doing, Councilman Green?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
And of course, had the opportunity to testify in front of you last week also. And just to stress to the persons here the importance of a level 1 designation for that new hospital, because it's so vitally important where our people should not have to be, I guess, treated and then shipped to the other side of town so that they can get the rest of their care.
Or not treated, right?
But that is so important, that level 1, state-of-the-art. Of course, we talked about high obstetrics in our area because we know the percentage of majority African-American women dying from high-risk pregnancies. And for some reason, DC is always the highest, for whatever. Yep. But that's what I wanted to still bring home, that we will need it. We hope we can get funding for a state-of-the-art.
That's exactly the intent. And there will be obstetrical care included there. And by the way, I have a bill that's been approved by the committee on nurse midwives who do deliver a lot of babies now here in the city and around the country. This will create additional licensing for nurse midwives who then will be available to deliver babies if people want to go that route, in addition to the obstetrical services that will be provided in the new hospital as well. Are you all aware that UMC has no obstetrical services at this point? None. They were delicensed in August 2017, the first year I was back, and they will absolutely be in the new hospital without question. And there will be obstetricians and gynecologists located in the new medical building that we're building in Skyland also. So keep that in mind as we move forward with both of those developments. Your next.
Hi, thank you for your support of the Main Street and revitalization. We really appreciate that. And I want to know, as a community, what can we do to support your submission for those items? What do we need to do? Do we need to write letters? Do we need to show up at that public hearing for it? What do we need to do to make sure this happens? We just don't want it to be a request and then just get lost in the shuffle. We want to make sure we want it to happen. So what can we do?
Well, first of all, we put hours into developing that letter. And again, you get a copy of the letter and share it with anybody you wish along the way. I have no idea, of course, what will get into the budget. I just don't know at this stage, but I have made the request. And I think, you know, when the time comes for the hearing on that element of the budget, which we'll be happy to keep you apprised of, I think if y'all can come down and testify.
All right.
We'd be delighted to have that. Make calls, you know, send emails, whatever, all of the above, okay?
We're planning on bringing busloads down.
Okay. Okay, well, and I'll be there too.
Okay.
I'll be there too. So.
All right, good. And one other thing, is it possible to get a copy of your budget submission? So we can
Yeah, I was going to give it to the president.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
sure, absolutely. No, we'd be happy to have it. In fact, you'll see there's lots of words in it, okay? So, take the time to read it through. Yeah.
Read everything.
In fact, I should have brought it with me, and I could read the whole thing to you. Yes.
How are you? Thank you for coming. Has there been a new site, okay, I should say designated for the hospital?
Yes. On the grounds, you know, we own the east side of St. Elizabeth's at this stage. And a lot of the former mental health services, they are provided in one hospital building on the grounds at this stage. It'll be on the east side of the St. East campus. In fact, there's some work that's going on right now because there's a shelter also for men that's provided on those grounds, and they are working now to relocate the shelter. They're going to build a new shelter, and they're relocating the shelter, and so the hospital construction will then start soon thereafter. And if GW is the entity that ultimately is the provider for the hospital, they've built hospitals. They built one in Las Vegas not long ago, and it took about 18 to 24 months, which is quick. I saw where somebody in China built a hospital. I tell you what, I'm not going to that one, okay? I think that was in 12 months. If that, maybe 6 months.
I think it went down as fast as it went up.
Thank you for that analysis, Jimmy.
Are there any other pressing questions for Councilmember Gray?
Given the prevalence of diabetes, where do you stand on the soda tax?
On the soda tax?
Yes.
I have not supported it at this stage. I also have some realization as to what it will do to people's costs too. It's going to raise the cost substantially. A bill like that came before the council when I was the chair of the council, and it didn't go anywhere. In fact, Mary Che was the one that introduced it. I don't think she introduced this one. I'm not sure who introduced it on the council, but I've gotten a lot of negative feedback on that bill. So it doesn't have my support at this stage.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Gray.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And
Pennsylvania Avenue revitalization of Main Street.
yes, sir.
That's right.
We'd like to ask the members that are leaving if you would stay with us a couple of minutes. We've got some pressing business that we want to cover in regards to updating of the bylaws. Kyle and the bylaws subcommittee are going to come up and share with us what some of the recommendations are for the updates for the bylaws, and take us out of here. So Kyle, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Hampton.
Rosemary's decision will come on up. Folks will excuse me, I'm going to stay seated here so that I can reference the documents we've got and also pass the microphone to the other members if they have things to add to it. Stan, can I ask for your help to pass?
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I'll
Sorry. The council just, you should have given an update on those two Wallen people that take some of us, so I'm going to read that up to you guys.
Let's take a minute. Let's take a minute.
So do we have a copy of the bylaws?
Passing over.
So what's coming around right now is a proposed timeline update on the bylaws, so I'll give just a second for everybody to get a copy of that. All right, so I know folks are starting to read, but what you have in front of you here is a proposed timeline for getting the bylaws updated and completed that the subcommittee has put together. So this is in response to requests since the beginning of this administration, conversations that we've had with all the residents about trying to get this effort done. As you all know, or for those who are relatively new, we did secure pro bono legal counsel from Latham & Watkins. They've been helping us with this effort, but we've also had a subcommittee. Half of that subcommittee is here. The other two folks couldn't be here tonight. The other people that are not here are Tad Dury and Joan McKenzie, both of whom are lawyers in their day jobs. So I'll quickly summarize what we have here on this proposed timeline. So this is going to get us to, if we march through each of these steps, to an updated set of bylaws that we would vote on as a group, as a community, at our May meeting, so 2 months from now. The key thing that we will do is we'll take the initial draft that Latham & Watkins has provided us based on the feedback that we've given them on what needs to be updated and their understanding of both federal and DC laws. We'll provide that to them after this meeting. Then, the week of March 23rd, we would take the updates that we have to that draft as a subcommittee, provide that updated draft to the board for initial review before we then send it out to community members. So that week of March 30th is when the board would provide to all community members a draft, an initial draft of the updated bylaws that people will be able to read, review, and be prepared to make comments on. The next thing that you'll note on your April 11th, it would be about a couple weeks later, we would hold a special meeting. April 11th is a Saturday. But we would call a special meeting where all the community members, after having an opportunity to review that first draft of the updated bylaws, will be able to come, give us their input, ask questions, have a dialogue about the work that we've done so far. That would be our kind of main consultation effort, where we could take, maybe not as long as people need it, but we would take at least a couple of hours to talk through the details. We would then, at the general body meeting in April, which is a couple days after that, we would summarize those discussions from folks who weren't able to join, take any additional inputs, remind folks of the timeline, and then we would take just another week or so to get in any more comments. We would finalize that process in mid-April, which we would then provide by the end of April, the updated version that incorporates everyone's feedback, that's also gone through the legal review by our pro bono counsel. We provide a final draft copy to our membership to review and be prepared to vote on at the May 12th meeting. The other date that's on here is May 7th. We wanted to highlight that for folks, that in order to be able to vote at that May meeting, if anybody has not already signed up and paid their membership dues, they would need to do that a week before our May meeting, because we cannot take membership and dues the same night as a vote and have a voting roster that we can go through. So that's what's...
Vote on this, right?
What's that?
You were talking about voting on this, right?
No, ma'am, I'm talking about voting on the bylaws. This is the
bylaws.
the timeline for...
No, that's what I'm saying.
Right, I'm talking about the updated bylaws that we would vote on May 12th.
Yeah, that's what the question I was...
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood the question.
No, could we, you did before, you put the bylaws on the front of the website before. Could you move them back on the front of the website, excuse me, as a menu item, so people who are not familiar with them at all can take a look at them now? So when you begin to have a draft, they'll have a sense of what
the current bylaws?
Right, the current
Still
bylaw.
on the website.
No, I didn't say they were not, baby. I asked, could he put him on the front as a nice menu link like he did before when we first got started. So
There is a tab and it says bylaws. It says bylaws
It's
on
in
the
the menu
website.
option. Are you saying to put the recommended changes up
On
there?
the opening page.
babies, all I asked was,
We're trying to understand.
I'm trying to make it as clear as possible, make it unique, and that it's been there. If you monitor, you will see not a lot of people have looked, and you've encouraged them to look. So I was asking him to maybe make it fatter letters, please review, just so you can get people's attention. So when you get to your final thing, people won't say they didn't know.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying.
I think we can look at
Ms. Paul, all we're saying is that the current bylaws are on the website, the menu option. We can add the recommendations as a link on there as well, if that's what you're suggesting.
I would like both to be done that way so that people don't come to your meeting saying that they didn't know, okay?
Sure. I think a key point in this timeline is that we want to draw attention to what we're doing, and we want everybody to have an opportunity
Yes.
to review
Yes.
the existing bylaws, the recommendations, our timeline for change. So we will find a way to highlight those on the webpage, put it all together so that it's as easy as possible. We want this process to be consultative. We want everybody to feel like they are included and that they have multiple opportunities to have their voices heard. So take the comment, understand. So the timeline is what you have in front of you. The other thing that we wanted to provide as well is a summary of the initial kind of big picture changes that the subcommittee is recommending. That's something that I'm going to have Stan, can you pass that around now? This is, again, an initial summary. It's front and back of this sheet of paper that Stan's passing out. This covers the key things that we thought were either out of date, needed to be updated, simplified, and some things that were legally not compliant with federal or DC law. Give just a second for folks to pass this around. I think given our time constraints, I'm not going to go through every single line item and sub-bullet here, but this is the opening that we wanted people to have before you see a multi-page legal document as a draft. That this is the summary of the key provisions that we're proposing that we update. So I'll give folks just a minute to take a look through that.
Is this a different one? Are you good?
This is, it's the same.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, going back to the first,
The timeline document?
the timeline, you mentioned that there's a special meeting that's being planned on April 11th.
Yes.
That's a Saturday right before Easter, so
Yes.
folks may be out of town or caught up in family activities. I was just bringing that to your attention. If you're looking for the biggest bang for your buck, attendees that may not get you your biggest.
Thank you for raising that. We didn't take that into consideration, but we will look at that and look at other options. We're trying to find a time that is different from our regular meeting, but that would also likely bring in the best participation. So we will look at that and perhaps propose an alternative. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Will persons be able to make comments online? Will you provide in case they can't make it to the
Yes.
in-person meeting?
We'll provide the opportunity for email comments as well, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, so back to the recommendations document. This is the front and back. I'll highlight the key areas. So mission statement, this is working off of our existing mission statement, tightening it up a very little bit, but using the same language that we had before. Membership, the key intent here was to simplify our membership and make very clear what the structures were and that who would have voting privileges and not. The key idea that was driving this is that we wanted residents of the community and property owners to be allowed to be voting members, and that businesses, organizations, others that were part of our community to be allowed to be members, to come to our meetings, but not to be able to be voting members since this is a neighborhood association. We also clarified the timeline for updating memberships. Right now it's been a challenge for us to, as a board, to focus our membership development efforts and also incentivize people at the beginning of the year to pull in those memberships. Moving on to the next related topic is aligning our year. Right now, our fiscal year, our membership year, and our election year are all three separate things. And so we wanted to make this as easy as possible for members to be able to track when their memberships are due, when elections are happening, and also for the board to be able to track those activities and keep it straight. And so the recommendation of the subcommittee was to harmonize that with the calendar year. So memberships would begin on January 1st, conclude on December 31st, and the same for the business year of the organization. That would also bring us into alignment with tax filing and also city filing for our 501c3 nonprofit status.
Are you saying that the membership would be from January to December?
Yes, beginning of January, end of December.
Let me finish the question. And meeting would be from January to December?
We would still maintain the summer break. But in terms of, you'll get to it in this next one, in terms of elections as well, elections of officers, we would start timing it to that calendar year as well. So I'll keep going if that's okay, and if there are additional questions and clarified, then folks can jump in and add. So for officers, the key change here is that we would propose adding one new officer position and also updating one of our titles. We wanted to add a second vice president position and clarify the line of succession so that this brings us into compliance with other organizations around the city and also creates additional opportunity for people to participate on the board. And then also if the presidency is vacated, the first vice president steps into the president position, the second vice president steps into the first vice president position, and then after that, if there are additional vacancies down the line, the board votes and takes a majority vote to appoint someone to fill those vacancies until the original term expires. So that's how we would handle the officer positions.
The board only votes or it's brought to the general body?
For temporary gaps, the board would vote, according to this proposal. So elections, this brings us to elections and the timeline. So in terms of harmonizing, we would move from our current election timeline, which is presentation of nominees in April, vote in May, and swearing in our June meeting every other year. We would move to elections in October, and we would do elections every year, but the candidate slates would be separated. So half of the board would turn over 1 year, and half of the board would turn over the next year. And the intent here is to make sure that we didn't lose institutional memory all at once, and that there would be a training period where new board members would be able to come on, learn from existing board members, and we would have that continuity from 1 year to the next. It would also ensure that every single year the membership had an opportunity to exercise their votes and make changes if they wished to the board, the composition of the board.
But why would you make it just 1 year?
The terms are still going to be 2 years.
Oh, okay.
It's just that the slate is divided in half. I'm sorry to be unclear with that. So an officer, like a president, for example, would be, we divided it in half so that on even years, half of the slate, roughly half of the slate, would be elected, and they wouldn't again be up for re-election until the next even year. So 2020, 2022, 24, etc. The other half of the slate would be in the odd years, 21, 23, and so on.
What's the purpose?
So, like I mentioned, it's continuity. It's to ensure that, I'm sorry?
Well, to me, it doesn't make sense to split it and try to mentor somebody, because most of the people in the community are older people. They may have already had experience in leadership roles in corporate America, whatever they do. So what I'm hearing seems to complicate it or make it more difficult instead of just simplifying it. If you're supposed to, why vote for half, and how are you going to train somebody else to step up? You know, to me, you know, I think if somebody's in that position, they must have something that they can bring to it. You know, they probably know that they're prepared for whatever position they're running for, and they won't need that mentoring. Unless you have some young people who are interested in sitting on the board, they may need some mentoring, but to split it like that doesn't, I don't understand the logic.
Well, we don't know exactly who's going to be running for each one of these offices. Hopefully, we will be getting some of our newer, younger neighbors to participate on the board. And you do need some continuity of those people who know how the system works to help the new people on the board understand how they need to get things done. So I think this is a fairly common practice among organizations. I don't think it's anything unusual or there's anything.
It's pretty complex for a simple community group. I'm not for or against, because I've seen the direction that the community has gone in, and I've bled all of the blood I'm going to give to this community. But I think you should rethink the complexities to make it a lot simpler for people. If you're going to encourage young people to step up to the plate, the simpler it is, the better it will be for them. I think that having what really is done in most large 501(c)(3)s, like NAACP, this is done. You're absolutely correct. On their board, they rotate. They have $2 million budget, okay, for the DMV. This is a struggling civic association, and I think you need to, I just concluded that this makes this look like a corporate entity, and for the last 8 years, we have come into this direction, and to me, you're destroying the ability to recruit young people. This approach is too corporate.
If I may...
We're not voting now, I just wanted you to know my feelings about it.
Well, thank you, we appreciate your input. I just wanted to share my experience having been on the board, coming into the role, 2 years ago as VP, and having been on the board previous to that in a lesser role. I can say that it's really important to have the experience of folks on the board to transition with you when you're coming in new to a position, to turn over, to transition, to understand the relationships of the association, the relationships outside the association, and to have it continue like we've always done it. I think it, as we've said, it wipes out that continuity. I really want to thank Jimmy for staying engaged according to the bylaws. The previous president can participate on the board and be engaged for a number of years after new administrations come on. But had that not happened, we would have all been flying by the seat of our pants, because we didn't have a whole lot of experience sitting on boards of this nature. So I just want to say that to me this seems like a really good way to maintain the continuity, allow people to train and learn into the positions and grow, not only for the younger people that want to get involved, but for the seniors too. I mean, we all have experience, or many of us have experience outside of the association, but I can tell you, I've sat on boards and been a part of other entities. This is an anomaly. This is a real different environment to have to operate in, and having the experience of those who've done this before, it's really been helpful.
I have one more question. Is it, is the mentoring, is the purpose of the mentoring, is it for understanding the bylaws, or is it just for training for that position? Because if it's for understanding the bylaws and the Constitution for the community, I can understand that. But to have just the mentoring and the change in half of them are voted in at one point and the other half another. I understand the importance of everybody understanding the bylaws and how they will apply in this situation. So is that the purpose of the training you're talking about, to make sure they understand this?
So we're not necessarily talking about training or mentoring. Those are your words. The words that we are using are continuity. So it's just so that if someone needs mentoring, that mentorship is there and available for that person. If they need training, if they need help with understanding the bylaws, that all of that is there. But it's also for continuity in terms of where we want to go in terms of our neighborhood. So for instance, one of the things that we're working on is that Main Street designation. So if you get, a whole new slate of people that don't have that institutional knowledge, that don't understand the processes that we've already gone to, why it's important to what we're doing, there's a chance that all of that work could be lost. And so what we are proposing is a way for us to keep continuity, keep the ship steady, and if people need mentoring, that mentorship is there, but if they don't, then there's always continuity to fall back on, and not necessarily help with understanding bylaws and things of that nature.
A question before that, the word mentoring is in here, I think that's why people are focusing on it. So, my question is, when did you anticipate these would go into effect? And then I have a couple of other questions.
So that's back to the timeline, and I think
Yeah, I can't find it on the timeline.
if the timeline holds and the vote on May 12th, 2 months from now, goes that people decide to adopt those, then it would be effective that day.
That day?
Yes.
Usually they don't, you mean, are you going to vote on the bylaws after or prior to the election?
It would be prior to, so we'll talk about the election and,
Well, okay, but I mean, that's a key point.
yes, absolutely.
So you want to do the bylaws, adopt the bylaws, and do the elections on the same day? So then,
That's what it's saying.
right, so then,
No.
It will be, we have a separate proposal to talk about with respect to the elections to ensure that the sequencing is right, because the intent here is that the elections would be held under the new bylaws.
right, but then the proposed terms don't start till the next January.
Right.
So how does that work?
So if we can table those questions, they're absolutely the right questions. We'll get to those in just a moment, because that's exactly the sort of thing that we'll need to sort out if we're going to proceed on this time.
Okay, also, our existing bylaws say that the amendments have to be circulated in the newsletter. I know you have, in the newsletter, you have, the paper copies available on request, but, that's not quite like what the bylaws call for. We have to make the amendments under the existing bylaws. And there's also a longer notice timeline under the existing bylaws than's being provided.
What is the existing notice timeline?
It says, the proposed bylaws shall be advertised in the newsletter prior to the meetings at which a vote shall be taken. After publication, then at the second next subsequent meeting of the association, any amendment may be adopted by 2/3 vote of the membership.
Right.
So we have to have publication in the newsletter, and then, we have the next meeting, then after the next meeting, the second subsequent meeting, then we vote.
So I think what we're putting forward with this timeline is the notification, the advance notification of what's coming and what we think would work to make this happen. So this is our way of trying to get this done, deliver against the priority that folks in the community have wanted us to update these bylaws, while also keeping us on track to hold elections, which I promise we will get back to in just a moment.
Well, we could do the elections under the old bylaws, but I'm saying that you have to waive the existing bylaws to adopt the new bylaws, under an alternative procedure.
Okay, that's a fair point that we'll take back as a committee and determine. Do you want to answer on that? Right, we do, built into this timeline, we do have 2 meetings where we're going to be discussing consecutive versions of the updated bylaws. We're trying to stick with the spirit of the current bylaws, despite the fact that they are out of legal compliance, etc. We are really trying to adhere to that spirit.
Okay, I mean,
Wait,
that's...
excuse me. Can we move forward and then go back to the question? Because I don't think my fear is that it's 9 o'clock and we're not going to get to some of the other cogent points, and then we can take questions afterwards. Because we're going to be at a sticking point and we're not going to get through
That's
this.
the whole point of this.
I know, but we
to
can do the
ask
questions afterwards.
We still have some more things to get to.
okay.
I think some of your questions will get addressed as we go.
Okay.
All right. So the last couple of things I'll highlight from the summary document. The meetings point, there's really nothing new there. It's consistent with our current bylaws in terms of the number of people that's required for a quorum and notification for special meetings. The committees, the key things here is to keep us in compliance with DC law, DC nonprofit law, that committees will be advisory committees that make recommendations to the board and lead approved activities on behalf of the association. Committee members obviously must be members of the association in good standing. The board would appoint committee chairs by majority vote, and also would be able to remove chairs by majority vote. Board will put out an open call for nominations for membership. Anyone in good standing can self-nominate or be nominated. If there are multiple nominees for a committee chair position, the board will vote by majority vote. The last section is on amending the bylaws. The key provision here with respect to how many people are required to amend the bylaws are the same. We laid out some additional specificity though in terms of what's required to propose amendments, what the frequency is to put those forward, what the process will be once people propose amendments, how much time the board has to put those before the general body, etc. There's nothing here that we think reflects a change away from the existing bylaws. It's instead to clarify the process for actually working through that amendment, amendment stage.
Well, no, question about the amendment process.
Ms. Paul was first behind you. Ms. Paul.
I want the, because I can't see the young lady. I understand what you meant about mainstream, but nobody seemed to hear me. We have had many officers over the years, young lady, and people mentor them. That's why in the current bylaws, there is the ability for the past officer, and if the current president and their office want additional committee members to attend any of their meetings to clarify something or update them because they were on a task force. Like myself, I was on the task force when it was created. That's why I was worried that we kept saying in the public domain that we were trying to get Main Street. We did. You all succeeded as a community to do that. Two, we always turn over data. I know we're doing a lot of electronic stuff. Has anybody, I don't see anything in here about how to codify the files. At what point, because people move. This is a transient community, believe it or not. I don't see anything to capture how do we codify and how do we make transitions of these codifications to the next team leaders. Because that's not happening. That is not happening. And so I think you've done a lot of work, but you need to think about how do you move data, information to that next group, because people are feeling, I'm giving you the truth before God, that they're not getting that data as a part of the transition from one set of officers to the other. Thank you.
Ms. Paul, I appreciate the comments.
Can I
We will
jump in on
absolutely
that
reflect
point
it.
though, Kyle? Because I do have to agree with that point, because I shared with Jacqueline that when I was on the board, we did this whole process, and you all don't seem to have it. We went through this entire process to upload the update the bylaws, and then Jacqueline shared that the version that you guys are working on was like 9 years ago, and we had done something in between, but somehow it wasn't transferred over. So we do need a way to ensure. When I joined the board, there was a file that Mr. Bussey gave us, a literal file cabinet from his house. And then we had to take it from there and then give it to the next person. Like people, at some point it stopped with Kwaku. No, it stopped in his garage.
Inherited a file cabinet.
Right, but that's where everything was. So there was no real way to have like the most updated versions unless you had printed it and put it in that file cabinet. So we do need some type of process for.
There's no question that this is a problem that we faced as a board coming in. Very sensitive to it. I can say confidently on behalf of this board that if our successors will not have that same situation. I've been the secretary, I've got the notes, we'll pass it on. Also, to the point about set policies, part of our agreement with Latham & Watkins is that they help us with policies writ large as well. And so they have advised that other organizations like ours establish a document retention policy. They've given us a draft of that policy that we can adopt as a board policy. They recommend not writing it into the bylaws, but having it be a board policy. And there are several things like not having conflicts of interest. These are board policies that are required by law, and those are things that are going to be part of this process as well. So this is absolutely something that we're trying to address in principle, but also in legislation. So points are well taken. Yes, sir, council member.
Thank you for the presentation. I want a clarification on something. I tried to be a member of all the civic associations in Ward 7. But it sounds to me like you sort of defined that I would not be able to be a member in good standing like somebody else. Right. So if I don't live in the community, it sounds like I'm not eligible to participate in the organization. And secondly, when you put on a calendar year basis like you did, do you then, when you join, do you pay the pro rata share the dues at that point for a year?
Thank you, those are good questions. So first, on the members who are not residents within our boundaries, that's our associate membership category. Those folks will be absolutely welcome to join and participate. They just will not be able to be voting members when we put things to vote before the organization.
So I live in Hillcrest, which many people know. So I would not be eligible then to be a voting member of Penn Branch, is that right?
Correct. For example, when it comes to updating our bylaws, we think that it is the right thing to do that only residents within Penn Branch be able to vote on changing our bylaws.
Do you have an established definition of what Penn Branch is?
We do. It's in our current bylaws and it bounds the neighborhood.
I do not believe Penn Branch members are allowed to vote in Hillcrest.
If you're members, you can vote.
But is that the reason why, when they wanted to put a pool at Hillcrest Rec, those people voted it down and we don't have a swimming pool up there? Is that the same reason? See, because I understood that they were gonna build, they were gonna put the pool in, and then when I went back to check on the progress, they said the people, the Hillcrest, community voted against it. So if they only have the power, if one organization only has the power for something that represents all of us, then we're in trouble. That's a problem. That's why we don't have a pool up there.
All right, we've reflected the comments. The second question about calendar year, we do have a provision for where new residents can join the association at a later time and not have to pay the full fee. So that's something that we will address for new residents. For folks who have been here and just missed the window, it'll be different.
Are you going to submit a red line draft so we can see exactly how it differs?
No, we covered this at a previous meeting, and what we committed to do, since we were needing to start from a legal document that is compliant with current federal and DC laws, is that we would do something like what we're providing here, and we will annotate the new version with where there are changes and explain why we made those changes. And this is the crux of that effort. It's our initial effort to communicate where we're making changes to provisions and why.
So if we don't see a change to a key provision, then could we assume it's still there, like term limits?
Right.
Okay, so term limits are still in, and let's see.
I think we're
One or two others, but if we, so we should just look at the entire, when do we actually see the complete new draft according to your timeline?
So the plan is for the first draft to come around by the end of this month.
Okay. And that will be the whole package.
Correct.
And then we have a chance to submit comments electronically.
As well as in person, et cetera, yes.
Are each individual's comments, when we submit them electronically, going to be visible to the entire community so that, the community can react and see what others, and they say, no, we don't like that, yes, I like that, instead of just everyone feeding in individual comments into a black box?
I can't answer the question yet because we don't know exactly how many individual comments we're going to get, but I understand the principle of what you're trying to accomplish, and if it's okay, we'd like to take that back and think about how we can do that. The intent is not to not be transparent, but just figuring out the mechanics of that might be really difficult, and so we might have to figure out a different way to reflect what other people have said.
No more questions?
Okay. I have no more questions on that, but given the original first document, it infers the nomination of officers. I stood up in last month's meeting and volunteered to recruit a nominating committee for new people. Over 11 people volunteered, 6 volunteered on site at that meeting. We had them to look at the old flyer that was used before for recruiting new officers. And we had them to tweak it. It is no different, the flyer that was tweeted is no different than the flyer that was used for the last 6 years and nominated Sekou, Boo Boo, and Baba. All of a sudden, we were directed as a committee not to distribute that document. The question before you, so I can tell the other 11 people, why didn't it go out with the newsletter? When can it go out? It's the same document. No, it ain't. The only difference is the dates.
Okay, I can address that question, Ms. Paul. As a board, we reviewed the document, and in light of the bylaws recommendations that were coming, the board voted to hold off on sending that flyer out to the community because we asked for some recommendations from the bylaws committee and a timeline of how we could get the bylaws accepted and adopted prior to the election cycle. That's one of the primary things that we wanted to accomplish, that the community has told us that they wanted us to accomplish, was to update the bylaws. And as it turns out now, the bylaws and the election cycle are on the same course. So rather than sending out flyers and things now regarding the election, the board voted to put that flyer on hold until we got the recommendations from the bylaws subcommittee about where they stood with the bylaws and a timeline that we could move forward with the bylaws prior to the election.
But once you make a decision, you made a decision in public, young lady.
Excuse me?
You all made a decision that, you know, we were working against the current bylaws. We wouldn't recruited young people to start.
Well, as it turns out,
let me finish. What you decided is okay. What isn't okay is not picking up the phone or even sending an email saying, hey, here's what we would like to do. Hold off from executing why.
Excuse me, we just had the executive board meeting a week ago, and the information from the board is being communicated. Back to the general body right now.
In all due respect, ma'am, you had 11 neighbors thinking that they were doing something for their community.
And they are. They still can do something for our community.
The question is, nobody's communicating.
We are here tonight. If you would just allow us to finish the presentation, you can understand what our communication is.
Would y'all send them a flyer?
No, we cannot at this point because the goal is to adopt and accept the bylaws before the elections. And if you would let us get through the next document here.
I appreciate what you're saying, and I'll let them know. But before God and everybody that's left, we have been redoing the bylaws for 2 full years, number one. Number two, we've been doing them when Sekou was president. He served for...
Well, at this juncture, Ms. Paul, all due respect, our goal is to get these bylaws adopted before the end of this administration. And we have a plan, we have a proposal.
All announced that. And now we're at 2020. And I don't know why y'all getting angry with the community members who volunteered. But
I'm not getting angry with anyone.
But
I'm just trying to
communicated with us.
That we have
11 people volunteered.
If you would just sit a moment, Ms. Paul, we have recommendations from the board, from the committee about how we move forward with the election and the bylaws.
Not voted on yet by the general body or the community. I know y'all don't mean no harm, but as a former educator and a trainer of young people, you need to be very careful of not understanding that these young people that I had grabbed up are perceiving that this is a dictatorship. You could have communicated something. We
are here tonight to communicate what the board voted on, Ms. Paul.
You did.
And you can stay and hear, or you can choose to leave. But we have recommendations from the board to the committee in regards to the elections. We're not trying to dismiss anyone who volunteered to step up on the nominating committee. What we are proposing is a delayed timeline so that we can have the elections based on the new bylaws.
Thank you.
So, in the interest of time here, I'll just go through this and everyone can follow along. I know the hour's late and we've already passed our time to be at the church this evening, so thank you, Marcus, for being patient with us. In light of the recommendations from the bylaws subcommittee, the executive board met, as I mentioned, we had a meeting a week ago, and the executive board agreed to bring to the general body for a vote the following proposal to adjust the election cycle to ensure that we can meet the community's request for updated bylaws that comply with the current federal and District of Columbia law. From March to May, which is the period that we're in right now, the nominating committee can still be seeking nominations for candidates to run for positions for the Penn Branch Citizen Civic Association Board for years 2020 to 2022. The week of April 27th, the executive board will provide to the association members electronic copies and paper copies of the final drafts of the Articles of Incorporation, as Kyle stated a few minutes ago, and we will put that to a vote at the regular meeting in May. So rather than you presenting a slate of officers in April to vote on, what we're proposing is that you present your slate of officers to the general body in May at our May 7th. Is that the second? Yes. The May 7th meeting. I'm sorry, May 7th is May 12th. May 7th would be the last day for any potential members to submit their dues so that they can vote the following week on the slate of officers. So at the May 12th meeting is when you will present the officers, May 7th, present the officers, and at our June meeting, that's June 11th, is when we would be voting on the officers for the current year. That's one proposal. Okay? So all the work that you're doing now is not in vain. All the members that are on the nominating committee, they don't have to roll off. It gives you a little bit more time to get a slate of officers and to fill a slate of officers based on the new bylaws. And that's just adding an additional position with the first vice president, and everyone else stays the same on the list of officers.
Well, the good thing is that the bylaws have to be adopted, and I'm not going to disrespect anybody until you all have your new bylaws. So I couldn't modify the flyer and add this position and the renaming of the corresponding secretary, which I don't think is a bad thing because he does a lot of communications. But when will you're pushing it real tight to have an election because you haven't adopted the new bylaw.
Well, we understand that, Ms. Paul. We understand that. And everybody at this table and on the board and executive board, we understand that it's a tight timeline, which is why we're making a proposal. The first proposal is that we would do, as I just said, we present the slate of officers in May. We would vote on the officers in June. And do they have this part? Oh, on the back of the sheet is how we would have to move forward under the new bylaws. Assuming that the updated bylaws are adopted at the May meeting, the new officer terms will be staggered to prevent board turnover, just like we talked about a few minutes ago at each election. And elections will take place during every October general body meeting. Well, that being the case, then half of the officers, which will be the president, second vice president, treasurer, communications director, will serve for 2 years and 4 months as opposed to just 2 years. 2 years and 4 months that will run until October 2022, in the first cycle of the bylaws.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Well,
One suggestion is
what
extend
happened-
the number of years for all of those roles, because you all, and don't take this as I'm talking to any individual up there. The current atmosphere has left this community with no committees that are active. So having somebody
Yes, there are
serve
committees.
for
There are
such a
active
short term,
committees.
I'm recommending that at least somebody serves for 3 years. You know, how are they gonna you're not being fair to new people coming in if you're saying somebody's gonna serve just this short time and then they off and then.
So Ms. Paul, I am so tired, I'm sleepy.
Okay.
I'm 47, okay, we go to bed early. Didn't you all say that there was gonna be another meeting to go over this?
Yes.
Specifically, can we?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, that meeting is scheduled for, let's see, following March 10th, the week of March 23rd. The subcommittee will provide the board a clean draft. So the April meeting is the next meeting for a face-to-face review of the.
I move that we do to the date that you just said.
I moved it, you go home.
I just said move, I just moved it.
I'm sorry, what is your motion again, Ms. Paul?
Was what you wanted.
So the way.
I motion that.
Well,
Someone asked for a vote. They didn't ask for a vote.
No, I just motion for the meeting to be this discussion be adjourned until we do.
That's what the officers do.
Yeah, that's them.
Well, tell them, let's do that.
So the week of March 30th, we get copies, electronic copies of the bylaws. To complete that. Okay. So we're done until March 30th. Okay. Well, we got copies on March 30th, so.
That's right. The question here, though, is about the elections. So we've clarified what the timeline is for the bylaws. But in order for us to delay the elections either to May or all the way to October, which is our other option, we need the general body to vote, because this, as you pointed out rightly before, is a change to our current bylaws. It would be suspending the current bylaws in order to follow this procedure to get us through. And so the point of putting forward this election timeline is that at our April meeting, we will need to vote on motions, either of these motions or both of them, depending on if they accept them. We can put forward an initial one, which is that we push the election 1 month, or we could put forward another one that pushes the elections to October so that we start on the new cycle, assuming that the new bylaws are accepted. Those are the two options that we're putting forward as adjusting the timeline for the election. And we recognize there are certainly not enough people here for a quorum and to vote on this in this meeting. But we will need to do it at our April meeting.
Okay. Gotcha.
He was volunteer.
So where do we go?
You are saying.
Thank you for your work. I've done bylaws and they're either.
Would you
like-
say it's a thankless job?
It is a thankless job.
I would agree with
I
that.
feel your pain.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments, and honestly, we do appreciate honest engagement. So thank you, everyone.
And I'm in the middle of another one now. Bylaws 5.
Thanks, everyone. We will resume this conversation and voting on the process, the election, delaying the election to April. And at this stage, the meeting is adjourned.
I got it.